biggest roadblock in reaching a budget agreement for the housing portion of the state's next two-year budget was how to end the eviction moratorium, intended to keep people sheltered during the COVID-19 pandemic. An agreement has been reached, and I spoke with the chair of the Senate Housing Committee, Senator Rich Draheim. Not long ago, you were on the program to talk about the proposal to end the eviction moratorium, and soon that should become a reality. What should people who are behind on their rent due to the COVID-19 pandemic know about what the next steps are?
You know, the first step, anybody that is behind on rent should go to renthelpmn.org and see if they qualify, or you can call 211. But there is going to be an end to not paying rent, and you will owe that money after the state of emergency has ended. So important to go and get help, and our whole bill is designed to push people to that website and get the help that we have the resources, thanks to the federal government, to pay out rent.
So one problem that's come up is landlords who have had to deal with bad actors. Either they're able to pay their rent and they haven't, or they've violated their leases in other ways, but landlords have not been able to remove them from the property. How is this handled in the off-ramp?
Well, there are some things in the executive order that do give an exemption for landlords to get rid of the very dangerous people. I don't know how that's been handled in the courts, but the way our off-ramp handles it is that after 15 days, if there's what we call a material breach or a material violation of the lease other than non-payment, so if you break your lease other than not paying, you could be evicted as soon as 15 days. That's the first phase of our bill.
Okay, and you mentioned the 15-day notice. Landlords will be required to give tenants before they can move forward with an eviction process. Is the idea to get people who are behind on their rent to go to Rent Help MN and apply for the aid? Because I understand then that there will be time for the process to work. And then for people who either make too much money or who are bad actors, it gives the landlord a way to get those people out of the property. Do I understand that right?
Yeah, so the first 15-day period, you don't have to give a notice. So if it's a material breach other than non-payment, you don't need a notice. Any eviction process for non-payment, then you have to give that 15-day notice. And the overpayment people, you can give them a notice to evict after 45 days, and then after 75 days, you can evict those people that make too much and should have been paying their rent. Because in the metro, if you made more than I think $83,000, you wouldn't qualify. So anybody under $83,000 in the metro would qualify for this program. So it's very generous.
And so at what point then is the moratorium completely ended? When does this off-ramp expire?
So the last phase is 105 days. So for 105 days, landlords have to give a notice that specifies obviously what is owed, that the executive orders have ended and they could be evicted, and then encourage people to go to that website or call 211, Red Help MN, or the 211 phone number. But after 105 days, it ends. During that 105-day period, you have to apply and have a completed application. If you don't have a completed application, you could be evicted. But we do give some time, what I call in the tails, or at the end of that 105 days. So if someone has completed an application and the state just hasn't sent money to the landlord or the housing provider, they do have a few months yet to stay in the unit. So that is one of the compromises that we made, that the state has been very slow. They've only paid out 5% of the applications so far for that helpmn.org website.
So the process is taking some time, but it is working.
Correct. Yeah. They're getting money out.
Good. Let's talk about some of the other elements of this omnibus housing bill. We've spoken several times about the problem of a lack of affordable housing in Minnesota, and it would seem, based on news reports with our extremely hot real estate market, the price of lumber and other supplies, that this problem is not going to go away anytime soon. What's in this bill to help with affordable housing?
Well, our Senate's been a pretty broken record on pushing for home ownership. That should be the end goal, is what can we do to get people into a home of their own? Not that we don't need rentals, we don't need to support rentals, but that is what a lot of our funding has gone to, was what we call workforce housing. And then we also did a lot for the manufactured home end of the spectrum. That is one of the most affordable sectors of housing, and the manufactured homes or the pre-engineered homes of today are totally different than what they were 20, 30 years ago. They're very quality controlled, very well built. We toured a factory about a year and a half ago, watched it being built. To be honest with you, they're better construction than some of the stick-built homes I've seen in my area.
So do you think manufactured homes is really the wave of the future? Last night I was on some websites looking at some of these, and they're, as you say, they're very nice and definitely more affordable. But I've also read that they depreciate in value significantly once purchased because they're considered property and not a home like stick-built, as you say. How do we deal with that as a state?
Well, we're trying to change that, and we had multiple bills in the Senate to try to do that. And the first step is, how do we title a pre-engineered home or a manufactured home? And that is one of the things in our bill. We also had language to encourage the state housing agency to come up with financing for that type of home. There is other states one other state that has a program up and running, and I know there's other states working on that. And I think we need to be a leader on that, especially in outstate Minnesota. It is the most affordable home ownership. It's cheaper than rent.
So the reform that you're talking about, if I understand it correctly, it will allow financing of a manufactured home as long as it's tied to real property in a co-op. So does that help someone build equity in a way that they wouldn't otherwise?
Yes, and I do think that depreciation issue in the past will go away if we do have the financing available.
Beginning on September, I'm sorry.
I just said for these type of homes.
Oh, okay. Beginning September 1st, students will benefit from a provision in this bill when it comes to leaving a rental before the end of the month. Can you talk a little bit about what students need to know about this new provision?
That was something that was brought forth by student organizations, and they were having to pay a full month's rent for maybe only being there 20 days. So we compromised on a calendar proration. So however many days in the month, the day would be prorated, so they can't be charged a full month.
I can recall from my own student days that there were always complaints about that. You would be required to leave your rental early to prepare for the next one, but you would have to pay for the whole thing. So that would not be allowed in Minnesota anymore.
Yep. That was one of the House provisions that we accepted.
Overall, are you satisfied with this bill? I know it's divided government. It's hard to find agreements. Are you satisfied?
Am I satisfied? I'm never satisfied. I think it's a good bill. It's a good step, but we left out a lot of the core problems with housing in Minnesota. We still have, Minneapolis is the worst city in the country for equity gap for home ownership, and we really didn't address that enough with this bill. I truly believe that home ownership is a pathway out of poverty, and if we can do a better job of getting more affordable homes out there, everybody benefits.
Senator Rich Draheim, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.